Oh, that's so nice and toasty. Chilly winter day. Hey, want to make sure that you guys know that this episode of the Higher Line podcast has been brought to you by Ignis Lux Coffee. Ignis Lux, Latin for firelight. A reminder to let your fire burn bright. We are only here but for a little while, and there's no sense in drinking crummy coffee when there's coffee like this available. Small batch roasted in fluid bed roasters. Check that out. Less than 1% of all the coffee in the world is done in fluid bed roasters. Why? Because it's more work, but it gives you a much better product. IgnisLuxCoffee.com. Roasted fresh, sent right to your door. Check it out. Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. Hey all, welcome to yet another episode of the Higher Line podcast. We've got the husband, the spouse of a recent guest. We've got Dr. Damon Zavala, right? Is that how I say your name, Damon?
That's correct.
Do some people say Zavala?
Maybe.
So what kind of doctor are you? You're a DO. What's that mean?
Well, DO is different than MD in the fact that, medical school is 4 years. 2 of those years are spent in a classroom. Okay. And the curriculum is different for a DO than an MD. We learn kind of like the same language that my wife knows, that PT, physical therapy, chiropractic, and a little bit more nutrition, a little bit more holistic approach to a patient. So it's different in the first 2 years. The next 2 years are out in clinical rotations, and you're just out there doing what MDs do. So you learn what an MD does, you learn what a PT does, you learn what a chiropractor does, and a little bit more holistic approach in the first 2 years.
So you can go down a path and work in regular hospital settings. You can do all those same things, write prescriptions.
Oh yeah. I think folks in Canada, when they hear DO, it's a little bit different there, but in United States, the only practicing physicians that can do all of what you just mentioned is a DO or MD. Nurse practitioners are starting to kind of become independent as well, as you've seen, but they don't need an oversight by a physician. So you asked me what I do. I'm an internal medicine physician. So there are some DOs that are orthopedic surgeons, trauma surgeons. I know quite a few of those. Family practice, internal medicine, OBGYN. So it really, the path that you take really depends on what residency you want to do and where you want to focus.
All the stuff. And so what's your specialty? I know you because I met you through some combat sports stuff. So what are the things that you practice?
Well, I'm internal medicine trained. So right now, I have 14 jobs. It's just the way it has worked out over time. I've kind of overcompensated for a time in my life when I was homeless. So I think that's kind of one of the things that I never want to be in that situation again. So I have these jobs. However, I work smarter, not harder. So I was a hospital-based physician who, in other words, if you had a doctor and you were seeing him, you had a relationship as an outpatient clinic, and you got sick enough to go to the hospital, chances are that doctor would not follow you in the hospital. So you would probably get a person like me, a hospitalist, who takes care of you and then transitions you back to your primary care provider.
Talk about being homeless for a minute. Were you really homeless?
Yeah, it was. It's not like I didn't have any family, but I was at Cal State Northridge. It took me 7.5 years to get out of undergrad because I worked 60 hours a week. Actually failed organic chemistry. So my professor was like, yeah, I don't care if you got to work. You got to take the test. I'm like, I can't miss work. All right, well, I guess you fail. So it's one of those things. The earthquake, January 17th, 1994, 4:31 a.m., there was an earthquake pretty large in Northridge, and I was on the epicenter of that. the house that I was renting with a couple other buddies came off the foundation, and
Wow.
it was yellow taped, and they went back to their families, and I had my dog 357 Magnum and pulled the bed out to the front yard. Basically, that's kind of where I was. Well, it was interesting because there was looters going down the street back and forth, and I just had to fire some shots off just to keep those guys away. It was like the old west.
Was that the big one that like knocked down some freeways that was on the news?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, my dad came over. I didn't know back then there was no cell phones and all that. So there was apparently someone's house, a lady that had a landline that at for some reason got you could make calls out. Everybody else's was down. There was a line a mile long where this nice lady made, had everybody making calls. It was just like you had like 10 seconds to call your loved ones and go on. And I got a call to my parents and I said, I don't have TV or anything. Where was this thing? They said, well, apparently it was in Northridge. I go, oh, we were on the epicenter. I thought my parents were on it because they lived over in La Crescenta, up in the foothills. And so my dad was on his way over to go, see me. And apparently that same freeway that he went over eventually went down, and a motorcycle cop was on that. And actually, as it fell, he went over and died. So that's now named after that motorcycle cop. I don't know the cop's name, but a
Yeah, I
CHP
remember
officer.
all news back in those days. That was crazy. So,
Yeah. So that
uh,
started the journey of, you know, okay, what do I do now? So I just had graduated undergrad. I knew I wanted to go to med school, didn't know how I was going to do it, and just kind of, you know, couch surfed car. I had a Jetta at the time, was big enough to lay down. Just you just figured it out. But the good news is my parents took my dog. So
yeah. How'd you decide to go the DO route instead of the MD route?
So I've always been more interested in sports medicine. In fact, my undergrad degree is in sports medicine. So DOs kind of align a little bit more. If you kind of know the crowd, they're just more into the sports medicine. Kind of thought I wanted to go down that road. So, talking what a chiropractor knows, what a physical therapist knows, you gravitate towards more of that. You kind of more interested. I was a personal trainer at the time, and so I was more interested in that kind of again a holistic type approach. So DO was that just resonated with me.
Okay. When I met you guys, we were down at a Henry Akins jiu-jitsu seminar in Arizona. Do you work in? Are you involved in fighting sports stuff, doing medicine and that?
Yeah, I so that was so to start the whole story. Why I wanted to go to med school. I used to watch the fights with my dad when I was a kid. And you remember when we watched Muhammad Ali on ABC Sports, right? And you could
Sure.
see it for free. So there was a gentleman, Dr. Ferdy Pacheco. I don't know if you ever heard of him,
I
but
don't think I.
he was a commentator. But before that, he was in Ali's corners as one of his trainers, and
Okay.
apparently he didn't like the way Ali was kind of hung on and had more fights and wasn't looking good. And he basically told him, "Look, you got to quit." And Ali wouldn't quit, so he got out of there, and then he went into commentating.
Hmm.
So I would always watch those fights and listen, and I'm like, "Fight doctor, Freddie Pacheco, like, what is that? That's how do you do that?" Right? So I come from a long line of boxers and bricklayers in my family. So medical school was just not something that you could, I could just pick up the phone or sit down with somebody in my family and talk to, like, how do you do this? I just knew
Hmm.
I wanted to do it. I didn't know how I was going to get there. And
And no Cuban.
failing organic chemistry wasn't, it put another roadblock in the way. And so I've always been in the fights, and my dad was pretty smart when he put me to work doing concrete at 4 years old, and he wanted me to do some manual labor and to use my hands and my body and just to go, to make me hate it. And he kind of was successful in that. So he would do stupid things like take a pallet of bricks or blocks and cinder blocks, and I'd have to transfer them over to another pallet, and then he would say, "Okay, put those back." I'm like, "What? What do you mean? What do you mean?" And he's like, "No, don't ask questions. Put them back." So it was one of those things. It was wax on, wax off type of thing, right? So, uh, so he got his point across. I did pretty well in school, so he figured that, hey, maybe this guy can do something. And out of 200 Zavalas at the time, I went to college and let alone med school. So it was. I knew I wanted to. I was into boxing. I was pretty good at it. I started Muay Thai kickboxing back in North Hollywood, and then I didn't like getting my shins busted up, so I was better with my hands. So I started doing more boxing, informal training, and then I worked at a boxing gym, and I got to spar the ex heavyweight champ Mike Weaver. He worked there. Troy Weaver is one of the fighting triplets. So I started to go, hey, I think I could do this. I was pretty good at it. And so I knew combining my love of boxing and going into medicine and watching Ferdy Pacheco, that's what I wanted to do. I had no idea, if some of the folks that were trying to counsel me, the counselors at the university or even high school, they laughed at me when I said I want to go to med school. And I didn't even bring up the whole, I want to be a fight doctor. In fact, I've only told a handful of people now that that was my goal, because it sounds pretty crazy, right? I mean, you want to be a fight doctor, and knowing what I know, what they make and what I make, you can't really make a living at it. So internal medicine pays the bills, but the fight doctor thing just fills my tank, so to speak.
So you're still doing that?
So what?
I said you're still doing that.
Oh yeah. 21 years on the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So I did residency. One of the reasons why I picked UNR internal medicine, because it was in Nevada, number one. Secondly, it was close to Tahoe. We would go to Tahoe as kids, and I loved Lake Tahoe. So I put all my eggs in that basket. Yeah. People thought I was nuts. Like, how many residencies did you apply to? I applied to one.
Huh. What's that look like? What's that? So you work on the athletic commission. What does that mean? You doing checkups on the boxers, the fighters before they fight?
Yeah. Right. So the Nevada State Athletic Commission has to, they sanction about whether it's boxing, whether it's UFC, MMA, slap, bare knuckles coming to town, apparently. We just did karate combat. So anything, we used to do WWE as well. They used to sanction that for some reason. So we would do a pre-fight physical the day before, and then we would be available at the event, whatever it may be. And there's usually 4 doctors at each event. So you do.
Go ahead.
4 of them. Yeah. So 4 doctors. So there's a lead doctor, which is usually in the commission side corner. The second is in the opposite corner, red or blue. And then you have 2 other doctors that follow out the fighters afterwards and do a post-fight physical.
Okay. So you're giving them a once over, make sure they don't need to go to ER or get brain imaging or anything like
All
that.
And more importantly, we have to give them a suspension. So you always hear about these suspensions that they have. We're the ones that are giving those suspensions. And then that is, it's a national database. So if these guys go or girls go somewhere else to fight in another state, there's a suspension. They can't fight.
Because you see some possibility of them getting their brain knocked out of commission or something like that.
Right. Yeah. If you have a concussion, and the biggest worry isn't necessarily that concussion. The biggest worry for that person is a second impact syndrome, is what they call it. So you get knocked in the head, you got a concussion, you go back in too early and you get hit again, that could be fatal. So that's we take it seriously.
How do you like juggle in your head? So you swear this oath to do no harm, but then you tell guys, go ahead, go step up over those ropes and let somebody batter your brain.
Yeah, believe me, that's it's. I mean, look, you do jujitsu. I think I don't know if you've done any boxing or Muay Thai, kickboxing, or anything in the
Sure.
past, but I think once you do it, you understand it. So it is a little bit different. It's, they say it's in your blood. Okay, I get that. But yeah, now put that, if I'm working a fight, now slap comes. I don't know if you know what slap is, power
That's
slap.
like, is that literally these two dudes just square off and they take turns slapping the shit out of each other?
Or organized Three Stooges. Yeah. So you got to put your hands behind your back and you got to not flinch and let someone hit you. So,
Oh,
we
so
always
so
say,
if you flinch, if you close your eyes and
oh yeah,
flinch,
they get penalized for that. They'll get hit again. You flinch, you get hit again.
so is it a coin toss to who goes first? Because
Exactly.
okay,
Exactly. It's a coin toss. So yeah, I have a real struggle with that. It's hard for me to call that a sport. I still, my job doesn't change though, right? They're to protect that person from themselves or the rules or whatever.
dang.
It is, yeah, that's a tough one. But look, if they're going, this is going to exist, right? This has been around forever, boxing, combat sports.
Yeah,
If, you know,
gladiators.
gladiators, if there were doctors there to help them out, I don't think there was. But Harry, listen, if they're going to be there, there's got to be something set in place to help these guys. So that's
Have
what
you
that's
have
what I do.
you worked one of these slap fights?
Every one of them, every one of them. Yeah, because I worked the first one, and so there was kind of a typecasting that went on with the athletic commission. They said, look, this is kind of a learning curve. We kind of want the same folks. We don't have to teach them all over again, right? There's like 13 docs, and three of them were at the event, so we kind of kept it there, and I was available. My goal to work for the commission at this point was to be available for any event they have. So that's kind of where I am. So I'm there.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, I've stopped a few. I mean, I don't know if if you ever seen this, the referee will kind of take a once over at them. They're kind of stumbling around. They don't have a good look at them. They're like, hey, this is, but and they're making the call to let this continue on. We'll put a orange light up on the deck and let them know that I'm coming up, right? And I can overrule that. So that's a little different than boxing or MMA, where the ref is the sole arbiter, and they still are, but I can kind of come in midstream and kind of override that and say, no, I don't like what I see. So I've done that a handful of times in slap.
Where some dude's just knocked out on his feet, still waiting for it
Totally.
to catch up. Yeah,
The
that's
old cartoon with the birds around his head, that kind of
yeah,
thing, and
yeah.
he's not looking at you straight, and it's just, again, that second impact syndrome, right? You get that first one, and then you get hit again. That could be catastrophic.
Remember as a young man, me and my buddies, my brothers, we would do these like crazy like every young dudes do, like who can run faster, who can jump farther, who can do more push-ups. And we
Sure.
like when we got into like the age of drinking, we'd play these games where it was kind of like pig, like pick up that rock, carry it to the end of the barn, do 100 push-ups as long as it takes you to do it. Then you got to run around the building, just like stupid crap like that. And
Yeah.
you'd be drinking beer with it, picking up 80-pound boulders over your head, and then they got pretty ridiculous, like climb to the top of that tree, break that rotten branch off, and just like dumb stuff. But like I think it's like the same thing, like who can stand there and take
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
wrong abuse.
Where is it going to go? Right? Getting kicked in the balls or something like that. And I don't know. It's just
Did they wear mouth
this
guards?
mouth guards.
Did they wear
Yeah.
mouth guards? Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
mouth guards, but you can't, and you can't, and can you hit anywhere on the face?
Yeah, so you're supposed to be hitting right on the cheek part. Too low is not good. Too high is not good. In the temple, in the
What
neck
about
is
over
not
the
good.
ear?
Right, exactly. So they have these ear protection in there that keeps them. And we've seen one perforated eardrum from this. You would think you see more, but yeah, that's you can't hit there. But again, they're winding up and hitting full force on you. There's some rules about that, but you can't lead with the palm. With your palm like this, it has to be kind of angle, like it has to be straight on. And they're looking at this in slow motion to see if that was a foul or not. So,
I see.
yeah.
So like anything, you little nuances to get your points, silliness.
Well, the nuances is the defense. Okay, so if like anything, Mayweather's defense is that that shoulder roll, right? And when you see him box, and you could pretty much be in a phone booth with him, and you're not going to really. You can have hit him as hard as you want, but he's going to roll away from that. Same idea in slap. You'll see as they're coming to hit, they're gonna kind of slightly move with the hit, but you have to time it right, because if you do it
Oh,
too early, it's a flinch and you get hit again. So
can you fake your opponent out by like feinting that you're starting the strike?
no, no, there's rules about that. The first one you have to measure, right? You have to measure first, and then you tell them a wind up. I'm hitting on one, I'm hitting on two, on three, and you have to tell them which hand. So you can't do any of that.
Okay, that's funny. Let's change gears a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk. So, like, I was with you just briefly, and we were talking like some general health and wellness stuff, and we were talking supplements, and we began talking about magnesium. And I don't even remember what the heck started it. And you and your wife were like, "Well, what type of magnesium?" And I'm like, "I think I got some malate." And you're like, "Malate?" And of course, there's like 9,000 forms of these things. Like, how do we not have good information on this stuff where somebody can just say, take this kind of magnesium or that kind of zinc or this kind of vitamin C? And one more point to that. I'll see people say, well, that's way more than what the Food and Drug Administration recommends, or they don't recommend that, or I get enough of that in my food, or just kind of painting a picture here to start a discussion. What are some thoughts along that?
Yeah, so what you're painting is exactly what's going on in medicine now. There's just so much, misinformation, disinformation, whatever you want to call it, and now everything has become political. I never thought I would see medicine become a red and blue thing, right? I mean, it's crazy what's out there. So there's people like my wife who, are out there and educating folks on these types of things. She wrote a book about it. I think you guys talked about that. Uh,
Yeah.
to answer the question about magnesium, right? I don't think, magnesium has been around in its forms forever. If you are severely constipated, you go buy a bottle of magnesium citrate, right? That cleans you out. That's why it's so important on which one you do. One is more hydrating, so to speak, glycinate. Magnesium glycinate is one that's not going to run through you and cause that. So, yeah, there's so many different kinds of magnesium, and what's the best? Well, we tend to go with the Element, which is a product that's out there that's electrolyte uh, supplement that you put in your water, because people that are drinking water are flushing out their electrolytes instead of bringing it back in and hydrating themselves. So you definitely need the electrolytes. And the misinformation on sodium, you didn't bring it up, but gosh, I mean, how many times have you heard, "Oh, my blood pressure's a little high. I gotta stop my sodium intake." Well, that's nuts. That's Your body is made up of so much of sodium that your body needs that. You start restricting that, and then you're just playing. You don't even know what you're doing for your body. So
Their heart might not
someone's
beat correctly, all kinds of stuff, right?
all kinds of stuff. Well, that's when you just start wreaking havoc on on everything, and everything just starts going awry. You don't know what to do now, right? Because you're just, well, I was told this, well, I was told that. This is good, that's bad. Yeah, so you need someone really to guide you on this. And go ahead.
Go back 1 second. You brought up elements. That's our friend Rob Wolf
Hmm.
out of Montana. when I was a kid, when you were a kid, Gatorade might have been the only thing other than going to a pharmacy and getting like oral rehydration salts or something like that.
Right.
What did people do? What did our ancestors do before they had little foil packets of Element or Drip Drop or all of these things? To how do we get along? How
Well,
did the
they
soldiers,
they ate
you know?
they ate real food, right? I mean, they ate real animal products. They
Hmm.
they went and probably shot, killed an animal and ate it, and that has that in there. Some of the stuff now is just fortified with this or doesn't have that, and low sodium, gluten free. It's gotten crazy. So if you live off a farm, pretty much everything that you're raising on that farm, you're going to be okay with. Now the soil nowadays isn't quite what it used to be, so that's another issue. So that's why it has to be supplemented into your diet, because what you're getting from your soil probably isn't enough. But back
Hmm.
what you're talking about, our ancestors, absolutely, the soil was great, the food was there for us to eat. It wasn't wrapped up. There was no Twinkies or Zingers back then, so you didn't have to worry about that. So it was real food. It's nutrient dense food, and that's something that people have gotten away from.
So you and I can speak for myself. I've only had a meal or two around you. I'm assuming you eat real food, right? I'm sure you and Mark
Well,
go to
sure. I mean, we eat real food, and we don't shy away from animal products. We eat meat. We do. They people assume that because we're in healthcare that we're vegans, right? Because that's the propaganda that's being thrown at everybody, that everybody in healthcare and everybody should be eating a plant-based diet. I don't know if you hear that, if you see that, that's what I see.
I
And
see that in a lot of areas, although the way that social media has shooting sports, a thing that I'm deeply surrounded in, it used to take 20 years for a trend to catch on, become mainstream, and then last like 5 years, things that taper off. Now it takes a year for something to become like the new thing, catch on, get mass adopted, and then something else like the sine waves are closer and closer. And so, like, I started the conversation talking about supplements. You probably remember Dr. Linus Pauly. Do you remember that guy that did the vitamin
it,
C research?
right, right,
My dad used to talk about him when I was a kid, and I'm going to make a number up, but this guy would eat like 10,000 times whatever our current recommended dosage is. And he was testing vitamin C for like cardiac issues and cancer and stuff like that. And so, like, this guy spent his life doing that, I think like 80 years ago, maybe somewhere around there. And now, at the same time, we've got people that still think you get like a Minute Maid concentrated orange juice and you got your vitamin C. But then on the flip side, you have people that think you should eat uh, Element, with every glass of water. So, like, how do you figure it out? Like, is there testing? Is there some type of, do you just close your eyes and see how you feel? Can you do some blood
right,
work? What do you do?
right. Yeah, you've got to. It's got to be. You have to test. Everybody is different. You're going to have different requirements than I'm going to have, and so on. So you have to have someone start with testing and go through this. As far as vitamin C is concerned, I'm not, because it is water soluble. You get in less trouble with that. It's not fat soluble. So A, D, E, and K are fat soluble vitamins. The rest are pretty much water soluble. So you can kind of get away with the excess and urinating that out. But you're right, the RDA, Marcy talks about that in her book with, the way that these numbers came up. This was back in, in a depression and kind of in a state where people were just needed the minimum to survive. And that's what you're that right. So that's crazy. That's not what you're doing now. You're exercising two 3 times a day. You're doing whatever. That's not what was with people just trying to survive. So the RDA is different.
Why have we not, in all these years, so many doctors, researchers, people doing their thesis, why has somebody not sat down and said, hey, let's take a look at this, and even over the course of a decade or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, being in with all the different jobs I've had and being in administration with hospitals, and I can understand how much red tape is at the top. So when you get to a level like that, you just beat your head against the wall. When I started doing things like chief of medicine at hospitals and this, that, and the other, to try to get in there thinking I can do something that's going to change the way that we do things and the old ways of doing things, and make it up to date. But when you get to that top, you realize that you're just fighting an uphill battle and beating your head against the wall. So I would imagine that something like that, I don't think anybody has really taken the initiative to try to do that. I mean, you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and these kind of guys that went in and try to make those. They were into weightlifting and this, that, and the other. So they got these people to start doing these achievements of, remember all the pull-ups and push-ups that you had to do with it. So that was a push, right? So that was kind of like, hey, get these guys out of just sitting on the couch. Obviously we didn't do that back then. Gen Xers, I'm sure you are too, a Gen Xer, but we were out playing. We were out all the time. Kids nowadays are sitting on the couch and playing their video games. I know it's a generalization, but they're just different than what we were. We're on our bikes all day long, and I don't see that now with kids. But the difference is someone took that and said, hey, why don't we standardize this and have someone, see how many pull-ups they could do and this, that, and the other, and get an achievement for that. That was a big thing to make happen globally, right? Yeah. So now you're talking about undoing research and from the RDA and FDA, and you're going to get 10 functional medicine doctors together, and you're going to try to come up with a solution and come up with those guidelines. Good luck. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening.
So I come in, I'm generally in good health, and you start taking a look at numbers. What are you testing? And if we're not using RDA numbers and these general guidelines, what are you looking for? Magnesium, for example, or anything like that. Like what are you testing, and then what are you basing where things should or shouldn't be on?
Yeah, that's a good question. You keep bringing up magnesium. I don't know if you have this thing about magnesium.
Because it was our conversation. Think of it. I mean, think of any supplementation, or maybe better discussion point would be blood markers or something like that.
But let's start there with magnesium. Most of the population is magnesium deficient. And if you went to a doctor and they ordered a
magnesium, let me interrupt you really quick. The reason I keep thinking about it, one, we talked about it. Two, I was doing a little research before our discussion, and I found like 9 million discussions of people saying what you just said were deficient based on what? Just so we're all on the same page. Based on RDA numbers, based on.
I was going to say that. So if you went to a doctor to try to prove or disprove that I was deficient, you would get a doctor or somebody to order a blood test of magnesium. That doesn't tell the whole story. You have to get an RBC magnesium, a red blood cell magnesium. So you're testing what's happening, what's going on inside the cell. Okay. So there's RBC folate. So there's RBC. When you're testing nutrients, you can't really just test what's floating around in the bloodstream. You have to find out what's happening inside the cell. And so that's why majority of time you're going to see these lab tests, showing some of these when they're showing low, you're really low. Okay. You're having arrhythmias, you're having problems. We'll see this in the hospital all the time. Are we testing an RBC magnesium in the hospital? No, because we're just trying to see someone's having arrhythmias. We're going to just check the magnesium. And by the way, we just give it, right? I don't care what it is, but they're having arrhythmias, you go ahead and give it. I don't care what the test says. And
What
so,
kind of magnesium are you? Is this a injection?
yeah, so this is usually the IV, and it's an IV in the
Mhm.
hospital. There's probably magnesium oxide or other types, glycinate. There's different types of magnesium that you're going to get there. But as far as outpatient world, if you're just going to a doctor and saying, I have, I hear all this about magnesium, what should I do? Yeah, you're going to test that. But for the most part, where are you getting, if you just talk to them about your diet, what are you eating to get that in? That's number one. Number two is if you have a average American diet, are you absorbing these things? Right.
Mm.
That's another thing we got to get into. So it's not just a vacuum. This goes to another tangent of calories in minus calories out. Most people still think that's a thing. That is not true. A
Say
calorie
that.
to you. So
Say that again.
calories in, calories out. Most people think, oh, I weigh this much. I want to cut back and I want to weigh that much. So I have to cut back this many calories to achieve that. Right. That's just not how it works in the body. On paper, yes, but in the body, my body and your body are going to be completely different in the way that we metabolize and absorb nutrients based on our gut health, based on so many things that are involved with that. So it's
So just so I'm understanding you, you're saying if I was 20 pounds overweight and we looked and I'm eating 2,500 calories a day, you couldn't just say, Mickey, why don't we put you at an 1,800 calorie a day diet for 2 months? I wouldn't lose weight, or you're saying just across the board, that's not.
well, yeah, that goes in even further. I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs on that. Losing weight. So most people really want to go, well, I want to weigh this. Well, do you have any muscle on you? You've seen
Mm,
skinny fat people, right? There's
sure.
skinny fat people are cutting calories. They're running a lot. They're just they don't have any muscle tone to them. If you build up muscle, just like that BMI, finally, you talk about things that have been around forever. That is finally coming around. They're getting away with BMI, right? If you get a bodybuilder who's 205 pounds, he's clinically obese.
Doc, every time I quit going to my GP of 20 years because the last three times I gone in, it was just for checkups. They gave me the
Okay.
BMI paperwork that I needed to lose weight. And I'm like, I'm not like, a bodybuilder, but I'm 190 pounds and I have abs. Like, shut the fuck up, man. Like, what do
Oh,
you want?
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's it's infuriating that we let this stuff go by. And that's some of the stuff that when I look at a patient, I take all that, the grain of salt, BMI. But if you work in a clinic, right, where the government is looking at you, where you're, trying to get reimbursed from insurance companies, you're stuck by this old standard that you have to
French
click
dogma.
all these boxes that you're and it's doing something to I got to go home and look at myself in the mirror. It's like, what did I do today? what
Mm.
what, what am I doing? What am I doing? So I've had that epiphany multiple times in my life, and I said I got to get rid of I can't do this anymore. So I do concierge medicine now. So where to kind of come back full circle to what you're saying, I will take that individual, do testing, do blood work, the right type of blood work, do a deep dive there. I also like, without plugging a certain company, I do DNA testing to check and see if they have a nutrient deficiencies based on their DNA. Okay.
Mm.
I don't know if you've heard of MTHFR genes. That's kind of had some, in the literature about being B12 deficient, folate deficient, that kind of thing, homocysteine. Uh, a lot of people that we're finding because we're testing have that. And you're getting this from your parents. You can't help it. So you have SNPs, what they call SNPs in your DNA that will, if you don't know that, right? Hey, I have a lot of B12 that I do in my diet. Well, I'm just not taking it in and absorbing it, and it's showing in my labs, and I'm, deficient in this. Why? I'm taking more than you are. Well, let me do a DNA test, and I'll pretty much show you why. So, I'll do DNA testing on folks and get their supplements dialed in just from that point of view. Other labs will do Dutch testing for hormones and stool testing. I mean, you have to get the big picture. You can't just take part of that. And the other thing I do too is do a brain scan on folks. I mean, there's just
What kind of
that's a
brain
big
scan?
piece.
Like an
It's an
MRI?
no quantitative EEG. I work at
Oh,
a brain health clinic that looks at brain waves, and it's a big piece of the puzzle that if you don't look, you're just going to miss that. And yeah, it's a that's another whole nother
what
topic.
are
But
you looking for in the stool?
so the stool looks at DNA of different critters that are in your lining, right, from mouth to the end to the anus, and you're looking at pathogens, so stuff that shouldn't be there. You're looking at flora, stuff that should be there. You've heard of probiotics, right?
Sure.
Probiotics are trying to give you back the good flora that you're supposed to have. These folks have been on as kids. I don't know about you, but I got on rounds and rounds of antibiotics for strep throat or ear infections. That really messes up your intestinal flora for a long time.
Hmm.
And these people that want to get a Z pack, those are my favorite. The ones that want to get a Z pack for a cold. Oh, doc,
Sure.
this has been hanging on too long. Can I just get a Z pack? Oh, it drives me insane. Drives
Well,
me
you
insane.
you as a doctor remember, it was just given out like candy. I remember having, you just said strep throat. I had maybe just a sore throat, and my older sister drove me to a local doctor. My mom said, run him over to doctor whatever. Walked in, was in the office for 30 seconds. He opened my
Yep.
mouth, wrote a script for penicillin or something, and sent me home. And it would, or just call and they would write a script for it. And I didn't take that stuff very much as a kid. My mom and dad were not super hip on it, but I just remember it was like the miracle thing. Yeah, just give them an antibiotic, give them an antibiotic, give them an antibiotic.
Well, in that first scenario, if you're going and they're swabbing and you got strep, well, okay, you got to treat that.
No, I don't.
That's
No, there was no testing. It was just like,
just
take
look
a
in the
peek.
throat.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I don't. Of course, but you trust your doctor. Back then, you had way more trust in doctors than you do now. I think. For me, my doctors walked on water back then, and whatever they're going to say, well, you're going to argue with that, right? You're going to go, oh, here's this go. Oh, shoot, I went there. That's what they feel I need. I'll take it. Nowadays, people are a little more hip to that and understanding that there's some downsides to just giving the antibiotics for everything.
Sure.
And it's just, again, it's infuriating on the amount of people that expect you to do something with what they told you.
I I
I
think
do concierge medicine, and part of that is a text that I've got green. Literally, this will be a text. I've got green boogers. Thoughts? Question mark? Question mark? I'm like, I'm gonna need more than that, right? And then it's almost sounding like I'm an idiot doctor. That what do you I know what they're trying to go. I know what they're getting at, but I need a lot more before I give them an antibiotic, right? So, and then I have to sit there and educate them on why I'm not going to be treating their quote unquote sinus infection that they always get. Oh, my other doctor gave me this. Why, and it worked. Yeah, because you waited 3 weeks to pull the trigger on that and it was going to get better anyways. I mean, that's sometimes what happens. So again, I get fired up about this because, you know, if you're working in a clinic and you have someone that's waited for hours to come see you, they sit down and you don't give them a script on the way out, they're pissed. Parents are pissed of the kids or whoever. They're you can understand that, right? You're like, well, I have to grin and bear it. You're like, yeah, this is a virus. It runs its course. It's gonna do this. The next place it's gonna probably hit is your lungs and this, that, and the other. It's got to run its course. You know, uh, have you thought about your vitamin D levels? What are you talking about? Vitamin D and immunity. It's a big thing. Have you, how many rounds of antibiotics have you had in the past to make your immunity so low that now you're getting sick from every person that sneezes on you, right?
Hmm.
So I'm not going to be that person that's going to continue this merry-go-round of of the incompetence of treating you with the antibiotic when you don't need it.
I like that. You just brought up vitamin D. That was another thing I remember for a couple of years. Everybody was like, take all the vitamin D you can get your hands on.
Yeah,
I'm
to a point.
I'm not
Yeah.
I'm just saying like I don't when I say that stuff, I don't mean that's just coming out of a doctor's office, but there'd be anecdotal articles online or like, these health and fitness like pages and channels and um hell, even like USA Today and those kinds of journalistic things. You'd have journalists writing about this kind of stuff, and I talk about it in what I do. Like we do this thing where like if if this is good, then if I do a little bit more, that must even be better. Like, not even talking about consuming a thing. Like, if 10 reps is good, 12 is better. So 15
Right.
must be fucking awesome. And so,
Right.
like, then like things just grow and grow and grow. Like, why or how much vitamin D should we be eating? And what kind of vitamin D?
Right. Yeah, that's a whole nother again, what you might need is going to be different than me. So again, testing is involved. Where are your levels? How much sunshine are you getting? Where do you live? Right? Where you live is different than where I live. I went on a 3 mile walk with Marcy today and got some sun exposure. It wasn't a lot, but it was probably more so than where you were. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a piece of it. Vitamin D3 is from animal products, and K2 from animal products is something that's going to help you absorb that vitamin D better, right? Because you need fat. Oh, my doctor told me to eat low fat. Well, guess what? Vitamin D needs fat to absorb, right? That's part of it. It's a fat soluble vitamin, and if you're on a low fat diet, are you going to be? You can take all the vitamin D that you want, and it's not going to really raise the levels where you need it to be. And to
Mm.
answer the other question, I think the high limit, I think 90 or above is probably too much on the levels of vitamin D that you when you get tested. I think the sweet spot is 60 to 80. Um, if you're down below 30, that's clinically low, but that's probably 30 still too low. That's my
These
thought.
numbers are denoting what part? Like, is this
This is
definitely
so yeah, 25 hydroxy vitamin D is what you order, and that's what comes back in the reference range. So I'm giving you those reference ranges where I'd like to see it. But if you're if you're someone that's doing everything right, once again, is there a problem from your DNA that's not letting you absorb that? If you have a lot of melanin in your skin, you're darker skinned, you're not going to be absorbing as much as someone that's lighter skinned. But then
mm,
there's that catch 22. Lighter skinned folks are more susceptible to cancers and this, that, and the other. So again, you have to take all these things into consideration. It seems as easy as, oh, go take, I saw a commercial, I'm going to go take 2,000 units of vitamin D a night. Oh, and I should be good. Well, that's what my friend's taking, and that's what my doctor told me. Well, what is that based on? What is
right?
that based on? So there's there's prior testing, there's there's more testing, a deeper dive testing with DNA, and then there's retesting after you've been on something to find out where is the sweet spot.
So if the DNA tells you something, how can you change that?
So yeah, that's a good question because if someone is taking vitamin B12 and you should be taking a methylated brand, something that's methylated and something that's uh, a, a reputable company, right? So you're getting vitamins off of Amazon. Sometimes they could be counterfeit. You don't really know what you're getting. You don't know what's in there. It's not regulated. So yeah, those are all good questions, but it's hard to answer that question, really.
Okay. Therein lies the problem. I get my lead levels checked quite frequently, usually every 6 months because I'm around firearms. And the first time I had it done, my doctor was like, "Why do you need this?" And I'm like, "Fuck, like, do I really have to like beg to have a blood test? I'm not asking you to like give me morphine. I want you to pull some blood out of me and get it tested
Right.
for a toxic metal." And so I had to explain to him. I didn't really want to. We're friendly, but I didn't want to. Nowadays, and this was 15 years ago, it was still not something um, that I wanted to talk about with my doctor, that I'm a firearms instructor, because political stuff. But any case,
Yeah.
he orders it, and my levels were high compared to none at all, but compared to OSHA, it wasn't that big a deal. And I'm like, well, wait a second, doc. That's like for a guy that works in like a battery factory or a lead mine, which any level of that in your bloodstream is not healthy. And
Right.
so he's like, oh, you'll be fine. And I'm like, you're stupid. So I only used him as a guy to like order the test. Not that I know more than my doctor, but like, he looked at the literature. He probably went right to Google or his textbook that just said, okay, OSHA says this many parts are acceptable. If it gets above that, do more investigation. And he's below that. But like that seems to be the problem that I run into, where it's a low level of understanding on a particular topic. In fact, it was very hard for me to find a doctor to speak with that had any knowledge on the subject whatsoever.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's just it. You asked about my schooling, DO versus MD, and this, that, and the other. We never really we just went through the worst case scenario of poisoning, right? But we're not discussing you who has something that they're doing daily or being exposed to it. We never went through those scenarios. So this doctor should have just said, you know what? I don't know. And doctors can't do that. Doctors cannot tell you, looking in the eye, and go, you know what? I don't know, but I'm gonna research that, and I'm gonna get back to you. What would that be? Now, you might still think less of him because he didn't know, but you probably had more respect for him if he would just come out and say it. Am I wrong?
Or yeah, it would have been perfect. Or I'm going to call somebody I know in the office here that's got a friend that specializes in heavy metals or whatever. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So are you getting chelated or what do you
No, I
do
mean,
with
it's
that?
still the last test is like, it's like single digits, but
Okay.
I mean, I've had friends that were like 20 on the test and they couldn't count to 100. I think it affects different people. I stopped training at any indoor ranges about 5 years ago or so. I mean, I've always been careful about cleanliness, but I think with anything, like I've worked in an ER and you're around certain things enough, all of a sudden, like, I don't need to put gloves on, or, I'm not washing my hands every 5 minutes. I'm not talking about pre-touching a patient, but, people get accustomed to certain hazards and their risk mitigation tends to go down when you don't get a negative outcome. And you don't, like lead and stuff like that. It's not like falling down and breaking your hip. There's not this acute thing. It's this titration where over time you roll in and get tested. And so
yeah, but you only know what you know. So now, and then all of a sudden fentanyl comes around, right? And now that changes everything, being in the ER, right? So
sure.
Yeah, it goes back to the point with the doctor. If it's not on their radar, they haven't been asked. I'm sure he hadn't been asked that question before. But once you put it to him, now what I would do with that is, okay, well, let's go research it. So next time I'm asked that question, maybe we'll have the answer.
Sure.
I don't know. That's just me.
In his defense, he's a good family doctor. I just, I was asking him something out of the norm. But in that, I think the reason I'm interested in talking to you today is I think folks, I don't have the mindset of like question your doctor and like don't trust them. But I think as we're talking about it, there's stuff that it's impossible. I could probably spend an evening on the internet and educate you on some medical topic of a thing that you've never read about. And 100%. You could probably spend an evening on the internet and educate me on some firearm related topic that I've never learned about. But I guess like the things that I'm trying to find answers to or talk about are some of these supplements. I probably have $5,000 or $10,000 worth of bottles of crap that we procure. Like, oh, that seems like a good idea to take that, and then it just sits in the cupboard, or you realize it doesn't make you feel good, or you find out some contradictory information. Sounds like what you're saying is testing is the spot to start.
Yeah, testing with somebody who has the knowledge of what they know, what they're testing and what they're looking for. And for you, I definitely would, if you have that much sitting around, yeah, I would say stop everything, test, and then find out what you're looking for. Like, why did you think this was a good thing to take in the first place? What are you trying to achieve, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then go for that and get that goal. So, going back to your other point about the doctors, it's not like I'm not trying to be mean here, but I don't trust doctors in my area just because I've worked closely with them, and it sounds pretty mean, but Marcy asks me all the time, if something happened to me, we're getting older and this, that, and the other. She goes, "Hey, something happens to you, and I can't, you can't answer questions for me. Who do I get to take care of you?" I'll get back to you. So I've been giving her that answer for probably 15 years now.
You don't have
I
a
don't.
colleague that you went to college with that was on the same
Yeah,
field?
no, it's just, I mean, again, then, when you go to college, that everyone splits off, and, there's only, and then you get to know people here that, that you work with. So anyways, yeah, I just haven't found that right person here that I trust enough to take care of me.
Need to
That's,
create a
that's,
website for doctors that's like find a doctor to take care of me.com.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess my back 5 years ago, my appendix ruptured up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, when I was, visiting my dad, surprising him for his 80th birthday, and
Mm.
uh, and I got stuck up in northern Idaho in Kootenai County Hospital, and again, the guy probably saved my life. The surgeon did, but he's managing my antibiotics for this peritonitis and sepsis that I had. And as I'm coming through, I'm just I'm not feeling good, 103 temperature. I'm looking up at my IV bags going, what is going on? And as my wheels start spinning, I'm like, holy crap, I'm not getting taken care of very well here. So I had to change my antibiotics. And that's a tough thing to do, to tell a doctor from where you are. It's like, look, I just feel that we're not going in the right, you have to be delicate about this.
Sure.
And so I had to, as soon as we changed the antibiotics, my fever went down. I took the opportunity, and I had to get home. And then I set up, antibiotics at my house, where a nurse came over and gave me IVs at home.
So you didn't have any symptoms that told you I got a problem going on. You just
Oh no,
got
I
sick.
had a fever, just a continuous fever and headache. I just felt horrible, and my white count was up. I knew I had fluid in my abdominal cavity. It was bad, but it wasn't getting better with what they were doing, and it was hard to
No, I meant
that.
before you ended up in the hospital. Like you're going to see your
Oh,
dad. You didn't realize you weren't
oh,
having stomach pains and the
oh, I
appendix.
I thought it was the spaghetti and meatballs I had the night before, because I was, don't usually do a lot of pasta, and we went and had pasta the night before, and I was just like, this isn't right. And I waited till 7 in the morning to call my wife, who was at back home, and she's like, "Why are you calling me?" So she called my sister, and my sister comes running in, and they rushed me off to the hospital, and it was just, doctors aren't very good patients themselves, so.
Talk about this for a little bit. So here's a guy that spends his life helping people be healthy. How and like I don't want to be on vacation and have my appendix rupture. Like, are there things I can do to not go to bed and wake up? No, it's just like luck of the draw.
Well, this is another thing. So I had my colonoscopy, just my screening colonoscopy at age 50, just a week before that. And of course, I reach out to my GI doctor. I'm friends with him, and it was almost like he's like, I didn't do this. This wasn't the cause. I'm like, that's not what I'm not. I'm not coming at you with this to say this is your fault, but is this something you see? And it is something that could happen, with the prior getting a colonoscopy and kind of mucking around there, right around the appendix. Was that the cause? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's over with now. But uh, it's just one of those things that's in the back of my head, right? So what that tells me now is I have patients who get their screening colonoscopy. I get a call within, a week or so. Hey, I'm not doing well. Hey, let's, do I blow that off? No, I'm going to go check that out.
You use it as a clue based on the
That's right.
totality of
That's right.
experience. That makes
Right.
good sense. So now you've got no appendix. Those things they do a job.
Yeah, they do. I guess it was full of it. So it was, this thing was, it was like, I guess pretty big, and I guess it ruptured when he was taking it out. So he did get pictures of it prior. So anyways, yeah, who knows? It's there's a few things you can live without, but I'm sure I'm going to be fine without that.
Speaking about this, so like we are all concerned about, like, one of the number one fears people have is death or being sick, in being an invalid and not being able to take care of themselves. We all know somebody that's had a heart attack or cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we know don't smoke, exercise, don't drink too much, those kinds of things. Is there any supplements that we should be taking to like limit certain major risks? Is there, are we back to test?
We're back to testing, but I agree with you. I think if you were to go take a multivitamin, men's multivitamin, right, off the shelf, you don't know. Let's say the company doesn't know what you need and what you don't need. So that's a bad way to go. So I always tell people, again, to go through this company. It's called Nucleogenics. Get the swab. If you want a multivitamin, go be smarter about that, right? It's a little life hack. Find out what you need. It has your name on it, your capsules. It's not like you share it with your brother or whatever. That's your capsules.
They then mix up a product just for you
Based on your DNA. Absolutely. So that's where I would kind of start.
This is something you do for your patients.
I do it for me. If I work a fight in Vegas pretty much every weekend, and I don't go home without that. I have it every day. It's 10 capsules a day. It's a lot, but I do it.
So it's couple in the morning, couple late morning, couple
five in the morning, 5 at night. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can anybody be your patient, or do you have to live by you?
No, I have patients kind of all over, but I limit it to 30 because of the amount of jobs I have. I feel like if I'm not doing this for money, I'm not doing this for anything else than I really truly like what I do and I want to help people. If I get 30 families is what I limit it to. If I start getting beyond that, I realize I know my limitations, and I know that I'm not going to be doing a good job if I start spreading myself thin. Now, if that's all I did, I would bump that up. But man, I love working the fights. That's why I became a doctor, right? I don't want to give that up. I do some other things that I love. I work at the brain health place. I work at a homeless clinic based on the fact of my situation back in ’94. There's just things that I do that I don't call work anymore. I actually like what I do. So it's like a portfolio. You have to diversify that, for things to kind of work out in your favor. And in my case, it's part of what I do, but it's not everything I do. I don't put all my eggs in one basket.
I dig that. I gotta change gears a little bit. Is there anything people shouldn't be eating or drinking? I'll go like way to one end of the spectrum, like high fructose corn syrup on one end of the spectrum, or juice. Like, I never really served my kids much juice, maybe some watered down apple juice or something, but I see people like pour themselves like a freaking quart of apple juice or orange juice or something and guzzle it like they're doing themselves good. Maybe just talk about some of those choices of foods.
I think it's pretty, to just kind of take this with a grain of salt. It's like, if you're a type of person that really wants to know, right? You're someone that's not going to take this information and you're going to apply it. I know that with talking to Marcy and talking about alcohol was kind of a buzzkill for you than saying, that was
I
one
didn't
little
listen
thing
to
there.
her. That's her opinion. That's her opinion. She
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
know
her.
this
But
stuff.
yeah, I mean, there's like coconut water, for instance, I think is a good thing for hydration, right? I used to, when I was playing football, I would come home and drink a half gallon of orange juice. It was just something I craved that. And looking back on it, that's ridiculous, right? So I think you can get by with drinking water with electrolytes, right? I think that's really where we are now. I don't. There's so many products out there. You mentioned great Gatorade earlier. The amount of sugar in that and the contents in there is garbage.
And of course, I
Um,
wasn't suggesting people drink the Gatorade. I was just saying
no,
what
I
was on
know, but you
the.
just mentioned it as far as electrolytes, and I don't. We didn't address it. I just want to make people, make them know that it's just that's not a good option for electrolytes. But yeah, so I think yeah, all those things you mentioned are not great. Apple juice every once in a while. Now, is it gonna? It, you have to live your life too, right? And if someone that is on the verge with like multiple medical issues going on, diabetes, kidney problems, liver problems, this, that, and the other, and they were dealt a bad deck genetically, plus they did some things in their life that they've kind of just added fuel to the fire to make their body kind of just walking dumpster fire. Yeah, those are people that you have to be really strict, stick with this. This is what you can do. Now, for someone like yourself, active, in shape, has an understanding of their body, taking is that glass of apple juice what's that really gonna do to you? That's a different story. You have to take
Let me
everybody's
rephrase that question.
situation.
I think maybe more like on the regular. Like, I mean, I will probably
Sodas,
drink, yeah, like pop. I don't drink pop. I
yeah,
think it's shit, but people drink. I only have two a day. I only have two Cokes. I only have
right,
three Cokes. I just have that one
right.
20-ounce bottle in the morning to get me going.
Right. Right. Yeah, those are things I would say if that's what you're looking for, I would say sodas are out. And if you think that diet soda is better, that's actually worse for you. Just the chemicals in there that can do some damage to the nerves. So those things are out. Those are just not something that you should really ever drink again.
I had a I had a student this summer in Oklahoma. I look over, he's got a 2 liter of Mountain Dew. And he's drinking right out of the 2 liter. And I go, dude, is that Mountain Dew or are you just using that as a water bottle? He goes, oh no, hell, it's hell Mountain Dew. I go, you drink a whole one a day? He goes, oh no, I drink 2 to 3. I go, you
Oh my
drink
gosh.
2 to 3 2 liters of Mountain Dew. And I'm like, how long you been doing that? Like 30 years. And he's a chain smoker too. I was just like, damn.
Yeah. Did you ever see the thing about the Appalachian kids? That's what it reminds me of. That's what they do, man. They smoke and they drink Mountain Dew, and it's just crazy that their teeth just start rotting, falling
Oh,
out. The,
yeah.
the problem is that you talk to this guy. Do you have any problems? No, I'm fine. And so he doesn't see the repercussions of it. So it's like, what do you do with that person if they're, you're telling them not to do that? These are people the question you asked has to be from people who are really interested in trying to be preventative or get better with something with their body. If there's people that just don't care, like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, I don't, and I'm not like, I think the people that listen and view this particular show podcast, for the most part, guys that train with us, we go out and shoot guns, which is an inherently risky behavior that exposes us to heavy metals. We do jujitsu. Right now, I'm coming off of a 6-month injury that trashed the freaking right arm and right pec on my body. It sucks. So I'm not trying to live like a sheltered life. I used to smoke cigarettes. I used to drink too much, as a kid.
Yeah,
But I like to have a bowl of ice cream or a nice
sure.
big dessert after dinner or something. But I'm also not motivated by that. Where like, oh, if I'm going to have dessert, I got to go walk 5 miles. I got to earn my cake or earn my ice cream or earn my beers. Like it's
Right.
yeah, and that becomes now you're not living.
Right. Right. Well, that depends on, yeah, exactly. And again, it goes back to everybody individual. Marcy's way different than me in the way that we view, dessert and this, that, and the other. She's got this, she'll, if she sees a donut, she'll probably have it. I can see a donut and it's like, I like them, but I don't have to have it.
You don't have
It's just,
to.
I don't have to have it. No.
Yeah, I'm like that too with sweets. I mean, I will, if I find like a really nice, we were just in DC and there was a really nice bakery that made like handmade pastries. That to me is like worth it. Somebody put some time in and made a nice pastry and I got a cappuccino or something like, but
Sure.
I don't need to eat a candy bar or something like that. Um, it's like we're sitting here and talking about this, all of this stuff is quality of life, right? Nobody wants to be ailing and sick. And we're all looking for like hacks, right? Like that's,
Right.
and I don't even like that term because I don't really believe in them, but that's kind of where I was going with that discussion. The alcohol. I We just lost a family member. She was in her 90s. Her husband died 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Battle of the Bulge soldier, in his 90s. They sat down and had a highball, like every night, have
Yep.
a double Manhattan, and then you see somebody else that maybe has similar body looking type and similar habits, and they're dead of cancer or a heart attack at 50. So like,
Yeah.
just talk about that where the genetic thing comes into play. And there was a question I wanted to dovetail into that, but I don't want to overload you with questions.
I mean, I got you. I know where you're going on that, but if you want to add it on, but yeah, I keep going back to that. It's individual. It's individual. It's individual. Everybody's case is individual. You cannot have a blanket statement. I put you on this diet and that's now good for everybody. No, that's not the case. We have to dive deep into what's going on in your body and then come up with a plan. That answers that question. I think you can't just have blanket statements. And yeah, someone's DNA is going to tell them a lot. Their genetics, their susceptibility. My grandfather was 89, had lung cancer because he smoked Pall Malls his whole life, but it was also at that same time laying brick from his wheelchair. It's
I
it's
bet he was a
totally,
cool dude. I would have liked
yeah.
to
Oh
have
yeah.
met him.
He was a Yeah. He was a legend back where he was. Let me tell you a quick story about him really quick.
What was his
He
first
was
name?
Chon. So my middle name is Chon, Chon. Okay, it's short for Concepcion in the Hispanic community. Kind of they have nicknames for everybody and everyone. He's Chon. He's you had a Chino brother, this kind of thing, right? So he's Chon Zavala, and he was an ex-boxer, professional boxer back in the 30s. And his favorite thing to do was to go walk. You have scratchers every day, lottery scratchers. He'd go have his fish a fillet, he called it, in McDonald's every day, right? He would go walk around the corner to go get his fish a fillet, he called it. And so when he went and got and ordered this thing, and he went to go sit down. At McDonald's where they have those tables with those little four individual turning chairs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so everybody was taking up a table, but there was one table where this one guy was sitting there and he wanted to go sit down. And if you looked at him, he looked, I think he was 76 at the time. He probably looked 96, right? And he went over there to sit down. He didn't really ask the guy if he could sit there. This guy was in his 40s, strapping dude. And he kind of looked over at my grandpa and he was just like, what? Hey, beat it, old man. Get out of here. Shoo. And my grandpa, he just kept eating his food, this, that, and the other. He looked over him and he goes, hey, the 40-year-old looked at him and said, if you don't get up now, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And so my grandfather puts the stuff down and said, don't let the gray hair fool you, son. And, and so they go outside and my grandfather clocks him. It knocks him out cold. Cops are called. He goes and they go to court at some point. The judge looks at this, looks at the case and goes, "What business do you have beating up on this old man?" And the guy goes, "I'm actually the one that got beat up." Everybody in the court apparently laughs, and judge throws it out. So that's my grandfather.
What was that, in the 80s, maybe?
This was 76. So yeah, probably no 90s. 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. So what was the question that popped in my head a moment ago? Talking about these life hacks. There was something I was going to ask you. Man, I
I
totally
threw you off, man. I threw
No,
you
you
off. Sorry
didn't.
about
No,
that.
I was throwing a lot. I'm not trying to like pin you down into like specific answers, but I think it's like, there's so many of these things. Like somebody the other day said to me, they're like, "Dude, do you do the Wim Hof method?" And I go, "What does that even mean? The Wim Hof method of what? Like, for one, and like, do I go take hallucinogens and sit in the snow naked and grow a big long beard? Like, I just being a smart ass. Like, I've
Right.
read his book. I've got a friend that used to work with him, Brian McKenzie, and some other guys that have done that type of work. But like now it's this super trend to take a picture of yourself in an ice bath, or you don't sauna 4 times a day at 205 degrees to you're doing an infrared sauna, not a true heat sauna. And I do sauna. I've got one at home. We've got one at the gym that we built. But I have done it before it was sexy, and I also don't sit in there when I'm going to vomit and I'm dizzy because my body's telling me that that's not good, But
Right.
like just comment on some of those types of trends as that, like, do you see Joe Rogan, who I enjoy Joe Rogan, but guys like this will post a picture in an ice bath, and now everybody's like filling up a tub full of ice, like, and it's like the next thing.
I don't get it, man. I really don't. I see this stuff and I don't, I just don't understand. Like, if that's what they're doing and that makes them feel better, or they have the knowledge that that's going to, get them to whatever they want to do, whatever their goal is for that. To me, I don't understand the whole picture of, this is what I'm doing, I'm cool. I don't get it. I don't, to comment on if whether or not that is good
Is
for
it good?
you.
Is it good for you?
Yeah.
Do you think ice
You know,
plunging every day is it going to
I've
make you
seen
live longer?
I've seen some studies on that, and it looks like the back and forth of the cold and the heat is, that's seems to be where we're going now, and it's not just do an ice bath, right? So you gotta, if you're gonna cool something down, you gotta warm it back up and bring the blood back to the area. So I think it's a combination of both. But do I do that? No, I don't do that. I don't.
Yeah.
There's someone I see that is up in Lake Tahoe, and he does this polar plunge thing, and all the time he posts it, and I look at that and I go, what's the point? Like, who is this appealing to? Are you trying to tell everybody that this is so good for you that the whole world has to do it? It's like the gospel, you got to tell it. I don't know. I don't understand it.
It's definitely fun to do stuff like that sometimes, jumping in a cold river. It's invigorating, but I guess where I was going is it seems like these trends are coming and going so quickly now. Jiu-jitsu's now become a trend. It was the late
Really?
90s the first time I went into a jiu-jitsu studio, and now and it's wonderful. I mean, it's what taekwondo was when we were kids, or
Sure.
kung fu. There was a kung fu or taekwondo dojo in every friggin' strip mall in America, but now it's become so mainstream where it's like, oh, dude, you don't do jits, you don't do jits.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm with you on that. I like it. I'm not. My obviously my wife's more into it, being the black belt. I like it, but it's not something that I don't have one of those cravings. Like, for me, I would go ride a motorcycle, dirt bike, and it was something I looked forward to, and I had to do that. I wanted to do that so bad. That's not me in jujitsu. It's like, I want to learn it. I do that because of what I do for the fight game. Working UFC shows, and I want to know where the injury is. I kind of want to know more. Also, I used to box, and I'm not going to do that anymore. That's long gone. Now this is something I can kind of do to keep in shape, and it's fun. It's fun learning new things, and of course, hearing Henry's and going to his camp and learning that whole thing. It that appeals to me, but I don't have to do that. It's just something that, there's different levels of fun, I would say, and that's lower on the list.
I dig
I'd
it.
rather ride a motorcycle.
I like it. You have a bike?
Yeah, I have a KTM 450.
Oh,
Dirt bike.
cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. I've got a dual sport, a Suzuki, the old DR,
Yeah.
like a it's like a tractor with two wheels. What do you think about coffee? Is coffee good for you, bad for you? These are one of those things.
Love coffee. Love
Yeah.
coffee. Whether or not, now that's one thing I would say, if there were studies that came out that said coffee will kill you. Well, first of all, I've been drinking it for ever since I was pretty much in med school. So I love it. And I search out different types of coffee, right? And these boutique coffee places. I just want to get the good beans that I like, this, that, and the other, roast them, and I want to put them in my coffee maker here. I love it, and if someone told me that that's going to kill me, I probably would continue to do that. The issue with coffee, the issue with coffee is what people put in their coffee, right? So there's Bailey's in coffee. There's all these types of creamers with all this crap in it that you're going to do it. Yeah, do I put creamers in my coffee? Yeah, I'll do that.
Like what?
Sometimes it's
Like, do you put like heavy, good quality
I'll
cream in
do
there, or is it like the
yeah,
little tear off the top and there's corn syrup and
right. So I'll do the heavy whipping cream. I'll do that, or half and half. That's kind of what I like. And then throw a little honey in that. I'll
mm,
put an element in there. That kind of ruins ex- the whole experience of the coffee for me, putting an element in it. But I've gotten used to it because that's the only way I'm going to get that down, honestly. So I'll put it in my
you
coffee.
you can't put the element in water and just shotgun it?
I just don't do that. No, it's just too. No, it's not something I
Hmm,
like. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I put it in my
Interesting.
coffee, and then I'll
It-
have another cup to really enjoy my coffee after
so you're properly caffeinated.
that. Yeah, I guess.
I don't know if we sent you guys any coffee. I know your wife's not a coffee drinker. I'll send you some. We have a roastery. I'll send you some beans. Do
Oh man,
you like a light roast, a medium roast, a dark roast? What kind of?
I like a dark roast, but with my coffee maker, I don't like. Sometimes it's oily and it gums up
Mm,
the. It
we
doesn't.
don't
Okay.
we don't we don't roast the dark roast to the point that we've pushed all
Okay.
the oils out.
Then for sure be dark roast.
I'll send you some medium and some dark. That's
Thank you.
cool. Uh, so if somebody, all the stuff we're talking about seems to come back to testing. Somebody calls their regular doctor and they say, "Hey, I saw this podcast. This doctor, a DO, said I should get tested to find out what kind of vitamins and minerals I should be eating." And the doc says, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like you're fine." Or, "Well, what test? What are they specifically asking for?"
So that's going to vary. I hate to say this again, but it's going to vary. Some people are into saliva testing for hormones versus the urine testing versus the blood testing. I think it's a combination of urine testing for hormones. Okay, that's the way I go with that. There's stool testing for that part of it. For the GI tract, there's blood tests and the certain types of tests that you want to get for what you're going to look for. Like I said, I mentioned like RBC, red blood cell uh, magnesium, red blood cell folate. If you're doing the other types of testing, they're not going to see it. You could take this to so many different levels, and maybe there's a doctor listening right now and thinks I'm full of crap. No, you don't need that. You got to do this. So you're going to have, like I said, 10 different doctors have 10 different opinions on that. But I think what I do at this moment is the right way. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Right? I just wouldn't. I'm not going to do something where I know is not right. So
Sure.
I do it the right way. But I've talked to other doctors, and they just like, I don't think you need it. Like, as far as the magnesium is concerned, why are you testing? What is that really going to tell you? Why don't you just give it to them? Well, you kind of got a point. And if it's too low, if it's registered too low, then it's really low. And then now you got to dive deep and say, well, okay, what's going on? Is your body not taking this in, or are you just not getting enough? Those you got to kind of ask those questions.
Some
So
other factor that's
yeah,
not just eating a pill or a supplement.
right.
Have you been wrong before? Have you changed your mind and said, I used to
Oh
do it this
yeah,
way, but now I do it this way?
absolutely. And that's why I tell you, if a doctor can't look at you in the eye and say, you know what, I was wrong about that. Science changes. All the crap that we're getting now that has a slant politically, that every day I receive something in an email from a medical journal that I have to look at and go, this has a slant. I can't even trust what I'm being fed now, because of this push to have this slant to whatever which way you're going to go. And now that's really difficult. It's very, very hard to kind of weed through the literature, and I gravitate towards more functional medicine, and you kind of find the right people that you follow. Marcy's been instrumental in that, as far as who she's crazy. I mean, the amount that she learns on a daily basis is way way more. I'm just getting bits and pieces from what she's learning, and she's diving deep into it. So I usually follow her lead on that. So I have to kind of stick to what I do best. I think I'm pretty good with evaluating someone's blood work and seeing those labs and interpreting that. And then we kind of are a good team that we fit together and put it all together.
So it sounds like that's really the core of your practice, is analyzing the blood DNA tests and helping people make lifestyle choices based on that.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of uh, sometimes less is more. When I started doing concierge medicine, I was asked to take care of this pretty well-known guy, rich guy, that I first met him, and then we're going through the lists of the medications he's on, and I stopped 14 medications on that first time that I met him. I said, "What are we doing here? Just stop that, stop that, stop that."
Was he
And
sick?
yeah, I mean, it's a long story, but yeah, he was in and out of the hospital, and they asked me to come over and do house calls. That's how I got into concierge medicine, and back in 2006.
I see.
And so I was evaluating what someone else had started on this guy and where we were. And apparently he was given 3 months to live. That was the quote. And he ended up living 5 years later or longer, and pulled back all those medications. And he kind of woke up. It was like Lazarus. In 3 days, he was like a different person. He could actually open his eyes and talk to me. And he was just being over medicated. So sometimes you just got to know when to give something and when to pull back something.
Let
And
the
I think,
body do what it does.
yeah. So I think that's kind of what I feel like I do best, is have a good wisdom and discernment around someone's health, about when to save them from themselves. Someone that is so gung-ho and wants to try everything and has the 5,000 supplements, and it's like, wait, hold on, what
Now,
are we
just so
doing here?
you understand, I'm not eating all of those. It's just over time you accumulate stuff. I'm sure a
I
bunch of
get
it
it.
could actually be thrown in the garbage, but yeah,
I get it.
I take a couple things a day, but yeah.
I was just making light of that, but
No, but you're right.
so it's just a matter of what is your goal? What do you want to do? You have to start there. Like,
Sure.
do you just want
I
to
like that. That's
exist?
how I start every single thing that we do. Is what's the goal? What's the desired end state?
What do you want to do? Yeah. Do you want to just exist at 55 years old? That's me. Or
I
do you
want
just want
really. That's you. Just want to exist.
No. That 55 is my age. I meant. So, do you want to just exist, or do you want to participate in life? I was a late bloomer with my kids, so I want to be able to, be active with them. I still want to go travel. I still want to do all these things that I couldn't if I was just trying to exist.
Right on. I dig that. I think that's an interesting thing. Like me and the guys at the gym, we talked about it a lot. I don't know how much training you've done with the Heart crew, but I would say for the most part, for our age, most of us train pretty hard. Not, I don't think too hard, but all of a sudden, as age mounts, the injuries heal slower, and they just you start to get injury on injury, and I can't speak for anybody else, but I felt like the dial getting ratcheted back a little bit, and then you get injured, and then you start to develop a little mindset of, I don't think I really want to wrestle with that 23-year-old, 230-pound kid right now who's a nice guy, because I don't want my freaking neck to be sore for 5 days after it, or whatever. You got to start looking at it a little different.
Well, you noticed that camp, I don't know if you did notice or not, but I stuck with Marcy as my partner,
I
and
noticed that she dodged me. Yes.
yeah. Well, let me just say it, man. You're a blue belt, but you're a sandbagger. There's no way you're a blue belt, dude.
That's a very horrible thing to say, because you're basically saying that my coach isn't a very good coach. That's what you're
I'm
saying.
just
Dan
telling
Hart, if
you,
you listen to
you're
this,
way better than what your belt says, is what I'm saying. And
Mhm.
yeah, you guys. Plus, I just had sinus surgery, so I wasn't gonna get in
Oh,
there and risk getting that hit.
get your
But
head knocked on.
that
Yeah,
was
that
the
would
other reason.
suck. That would
Yeah, so
suck.
I pick and choose who I roll with because for that exact reason. And if I feel it's something getting ramped up, I just back off. Like, we're
Hmm.
not in a fight here. Just chill. Let's go back
Hmm.
to square one here.
It's not worth it. Couple more odds and ends questions. How important is sleep? One
Oh,
end of the spectrum, sleep when you're dead. The other end, you got to take 4-hour naps in the middle of the day and 8 hours at night.
no, it's not. Yeah, it's not. If you're napping during the day, you're doing something wrong. So, but to answer that question, sleep is so important. It's a 10 out of 10 as far as importance, and that's something I've learned since I started working at the brain health. If everyone's circadian rhythm needs to be dialed in, and you've got to be asleep by 10 p.m. People laugh at me with that, and sleep through 2 a.m. That's when you get your restorative deep sleep to clean up and repair your brain. And then everything after that is gravy. Again, one of the things I look at when I see somebody with this quantitative EEG, I'll be able to look at that and say roughly how many hours of sleep you'll need a night. Some people require less, some people require more. But the key is everyone should be getting to sleep and be asleep by 10 p.m. Again, not everybody's going to do that.
Why that? What's 10? What does that have to do with
So,
anything?
because that's our circadian rhythm for humans. That's just, I've told you that everything is different for everybody, and it's, you have to find out what that is for you. In humans, in this case, this is pretty much a one size fits all. You've got to be asleep by 10 p.m. You've got to get morning light. That's what I did this morning. Went on my walk without glasses and got the blue light in the morning. Those things that I wholeheartedly believe in. And you can't, so far, nobody's given me any rebuttal as far as literature to say that I'm wrong on that.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
so sleep is tied to so many different disease states. And if you just got your sleep, you would kind of eliminate many things, depression, anxiety, sometimes people that can't lose weight because of certain hormones that are being secreted that they're staying up too late, flipping their night and day. Now for work, like I was in the hospital. That's one of the reasons why I got out of the hospital, because I had to do night shifts, and I would do work a night shift, and then I had to work during the day and be available for my concierge patients. And I was just killing myself. I mean,
Hmm.
literally. So sleep, I'm glad you touched and asked on that, because that is huge. And we'll do treatment with people at our brain health place that uses a TMS machine to kind of align the brain waves. And if they're not getting their sleep, you're not going to see the results, get the most bang for the buck out of that treatment. So sleep is number one.
you brought up anxiety, depression, things like that. And then just talking about your crazy work schedule brings up to me cops, firemen, nurses, ER techs, or just anybody that has to work a job where they're getting adrenalized often. Start to talk about, uh, or we were talking about malabsorption of nutrients and things like that. What can happen just to like systems like digestive system when we're in this high state of stress constantly, even if we eat good foods?
Right. So that's the cortisol. I think you're alluding to that. The cortisol's, if you're burning the candle at both ends, you're flogging your system constantly, constantly doing this. As you're younger, you can kind of get away with that because certain organs will be doing, doing their job for creating hormones. And all of a sudden you get to your 40s and 50s, and now your adrenal glands are taking over the responsibility of other organs that have stopped working. And that's just the natural process. Now you're double duty on your adrenal glands. I'm not someone who believes in adrenal fatigue as a real thing, by the way. So
Okay.
adrenal fatigue is kind of a wastebasket diagnosis. I understand where they're going with that. And someone who is burning the candle at both ends, working out at night just to kind of get that workout in, staying up all night, all the things you just mentioned. Yeah, that's going to be a real problem. And then, like what I used to do was you would eat on the run, literally eat on the run, go to the cafeteria in the doctor's lounge, get something, and walk back to where you're doing and eating on the run. You cannot absorb anything that you're taking in. So it's, what am I doing? That's just enough to tell my brain I'm not hangry anymore, right? That's all I did that for. So 100%. Eating has its time and place, and you have to do it right. Sleeping, working out, you bring up a point of doing too much. Working out should be when your cortisol is rising naturally in the morning time. So everyone asks, when's the right time to work out? That should be pretty much aligned with your cortisol levels in the morning. So you should
So,
be working out in the morning.
so doing like a 6 p.m. gym session, jujitsu, Muay Thai, not a great idea.
Not a great idea. But again, then again, what is your goal? What are you trying to do? Well, that's the only time I can do it, and I love doing this. I'm not giving it. Okay, great. You answered your own question. There is no question. You're
Right.
going to do it. But if you're asking me, how can I optimize that? How can I do that better? How can my cortisol levels be more aligned with that, and I can be have more energy throughout the day and sleep better? Well, I'm going to tell you, well, move that to a morning workout.
That makes sense. My goal, just to, so like if you ever come to one of my courses, we've got a course handout. The handout starts with, what's your goal? Why are you here? What do you want when you leave here? And mine, like everything comes back to one central spot. I want to live a long, full life. Long could be today. I don't know. But like the full part's on me. And my thought is, hey, if I like, I am self-employed, so I can go to the 6 or 9 a.m. class versus the 6 p.m. class if I so choose. So hearing that, if going to the morning class provides my body a better chance to rest and recover, then maybe I should do that, right? But like, I think I hear what you're saying. But the other side, all my friends are at the 6 p.m. class. All the 9 to 5 guys are at the 6 p.m. class. And then I miss seeing them and being
Yeah.
around them too. Yeah.
Right. That factors in, right? So that's the work-life balance you talk about. That's the work life, this is food you talked about. Oh, I got to have a little of this, a little ice cream, everything that I say, everything has a risk and benefit. A pill, a supplement, when you cross the street, are you going to look both ways? That's a risk. You're going to take all that and weigh out what's the risk and what's the benefit. And if the risks is always tipping higher, and you're kind of living this crazy lifestyle. If the benefit is there and you have a little bit of risk, sometimes that comes with the territory. So everything I do, everything I tell my patients to think about, everything they do it comes with a assessment of the benefit and risk.
I like that. I like that. Do you have anything for people to purchase from you? Do you have a book, a website, anything like that? You're just sharing your life.
Nothing.
Goodwill.
Nothing. No, I would say if you're,
You got a bank
you
account that you can spend your money to for the hell of it?
no, if you already talked about Marcy, but yeah, I mean, her book and what she does, I think that's
Plug
money.
that book again. It's a great book. I've got a copy I bought.
Yeah, Pain Proof Your Life, and I think it's on Amazon, but you can find it on her website, marcyzavala.com. For me, yeah, no spotlight, nothing. I don't need any more patience. I don't. It sounds a little crazy, but yeah, I'm happy where I am. I like getting up in the morning and going for a walk with my wife. I like being able to work any fight that gets thrown my way down in Vegas or here in Reno once in a while. I like going on vacation. That's that's my life now. And then I also like, you brought up that if they go to your course and do what you do, Marcy explained that to me, what you guys do a little bit. That intrigues me. But if I had to answer the question that you throw out there, what do I want to get out of this? I don't know. I don't know what I don't know.
We talk about that quite in depth, like, because you don't know, you might have to develop a body of knowledge to figure out. It's like that's why you go to a guidance counselor at the high school or college.
Yeah, I mean, I would want to be able to understand and be more comfortable around guns. That's one thing, but I would, am I getting ready for World War III and to protect myself from that? Yeah, exactly. I don't know. So I wouldn't know I wouldn't even know how to answer that. When you brought that up, I just, I don't know. I want to check it out. I'm intrigued. I'm here. I want to do this, and I'm going to pay you the money to find out.
And that's like the interesting thing about that's like if somebody came to you and said, I have stage 4 cancer and it's all through my body. Can you fix it in the next week? Probably not. Right.
No.
Like there's certain insurmountable things, or come to your wife's jujitsu class and I want to be able to beat Gordon Ryan. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to help you with that, but some things are insurmountable. But I like to end every podcast with this. If the people that visited with us today, watched you, listened, if they never crossed your path, never met you in person, what would you leave them with?
Oh gosh, I would leave them with just what we said today. Have an idea. If you made me ponder what I would want to get out of your course. Now, for me, I would like you to ponder, what do you want to get out of life? Are you here just to exist, or do you want to really take advantage and live the fullest life that you can while you're here? Basically, quality of life, and address that and find out really what it is you want before you start asking questions to doctors about test my magnesium levels, do this. Find out what you want first. What's your goal? Like you said, start with a goal. So I think everybody should do that and figure out what it is they want to get out of life. Different times of their life, you're going to have different goals. At 20, way different than where I am now. So my goal in life is way different. I'm happy being home with family. The pandemic for me was awesome. I hate to say that. We kind of bunkered down in a 600 square foot condo, and with my family, that was heaven for me. I dug it.
Perspective can change quick.
Right.
Yeah, I like it. You guys that tuned in, I hope you learned something. It was kind of a meandering conversation with a really smart cat that's done a lot in his short life. I think the big picture always is, what do we want out of it? And I hope that you got something out of it. If you dug the conversation, share it, put it on your Facebook page or wherever else. If there's a question, leave it down in the comments, or you can email me at training@carrytrainer.com and I can forward that over to the doc, and maybe he'd be so kind to answer it. Or like I said, put it in the comments section and I'll send him a link and maybe he can stalk those comments. As most of these podcasts have been of late, this podcast was brought to you by Ignis Lux Coffee. That means firelight. in Latin, just like the fire that's been burning here behind me on this cold winter day. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love them.
Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@CarryTrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com. Hey, little brother, what do you think of gunfighter gun oil?
I'm gonna have to show you.
Hey, Steve, what do you think of gunfighter gun oil?
Well, Mick,
Hey, Steve, what do you think of gunfighter gun oil?
well, Mick, I have to show you about that. Gunfighter lube. Baby, I had the gunfighter blue. But then I got me some gunfighter lube. Let me tell you about it. Made in the USA. Amazing lubricity. Amazing adhesion, baby. 100% synthetic. But it's gonna last you. Gunfighter gun oil, baby. Took away my gunfighter blues. I'm still working on it, but you know.
So you like the lube?